Today's chapter is a chapter that out of First Kings, probably one of the more famous chapters that's out there. This is chapter 3. The Lord appears to Solomon. Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, by marrying Pharaoh's daughter. Solomon brought her to the city of David until he finished building his palace, the Lord's temple, and the walls surrounding Jerusalem. However, the people were sacrificing on the high places because until that time a temple for the Lord's name had not been built. Solomon loved the Lord by walking in the statutes of his father David, but he also sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there because it was the most famous high place. He offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night, and God said, "Ask, what should I give you?" And Solomon replied, "You have shown great and faithful love to your servant, my father David, because he walked before you in faithfulness, righteousness, and integrity. You have continued this great and faithful love for him by giving him a son to sit on his throne as it is today. Lord my God, you have now made your servant king in my father David's place, yet I am just a youth with no experience in leadership. Your servant is among your people you have chosen, a people too many to be numbered or counted. So give your servant a receptive heart to judge your people and to discern between good and evil, for who is able to judge this great people of yours?" Now it pleased the Lord that Solomon had requested this, so God said to him, "Because you have requested this and did not ask for long life or riches for yourself or the death of your enemies, but you asked discernment for yourself to administer justice, I will therefore do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and understanding heart so that there has never been anyone like you before and never will be again. In addition, I will give you what you did not ask for, both riches and honor, so that no king will be your equal during your entire life. If you walk in my ways and keep my statutes and commands just as your father David did, I will give you a long life." Then Solomon woke up and realized it had been a dream. He went to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the Lord's covenant, and offered burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he held a feast for all his servants. Solomon's wisdom. Then 2 women who were prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One woman said, "Please, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was in the house. On the 3rd day after I gave birth, she also had a baby, and we were alone. No one else was with us in the house, just the 2 of us were there. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. She got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while your servant was asleep. Then she laid him in her arms, and she put her dead son in my arms. When I got up in the morning to nurse my son, I discovered that he was dead. That morning, when I looked closely at him, I realized he was not the son I gave birth to." "No," the other woman said, "my son is the living one. Your son is the dead one." The first woman said, "No, your son is the dead one. My son is the living one." So they argued before the king. The king replied, "The woman says, 'This is my son who is alive, and your son is dead.' But that woman says, 'No, your son is dead, and my son is alive.'" The king continued, "Bring me a sword." So they brought the sword to the king, and the king said, "Cut the living boy in 2 and give half to one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive spoke to the king because she felt great compassion for her son. "My lord, give her the living baby." She said, "But please don't have him killed." But the other one said, "He will not be mine or yours. Cut him in 2. The king responded, "Give the living baby to the first woman and don't kill him. She is his mother." All Israel heard about the judgment the king had given, and they stood in awe of the king because they saw that God's wisdom was in him to carry out justice. That is 1 Kings chapter 3. You know, it's interesting to me as I think about the day we live in and the society we live in. And as I get older, I think the lack of biblical literacy and knowledge people have, and how that can roll over into other areas of life. And a not the most holiest example, but I enjoy Seinfeld. And there's a Seinfeld episode that they take this story, they just take the story and they reenact it in a different context. And, it's probably funny by itself, but it's nowhere near as funny if you realize where it comes from and what they're doing. And the show presumes upon the biblical literacy of the people. Now, that show is, can you believe that's from the 1990s already? I mean, we're talking, that show started over 30 years ago. In fact, I think it ended in 96, I think. So I think this year's the 30th anniversary of it ending. Other things on that show, it just mocked events of the day. That Kennedy movie that came out with the theory of the double shooter, the second shooter, and the O.J. Simpson trials were going on in that day, and they took things from the headlines and made just used it for humor in their show. And so I work with a lot of younger people who will say they like the show, and I can't help but think, well, how much do you really understand or realize how humorous some of this stuff is? If you aren't aware of the news headlines that were going on at the time, or in this case, of a biblical literacy issue, and the show made biblical references. Not only once, it did it a few times, and having a working knowledge of the Bible is crucial to understanding some of the humor that's going on. But that's why we do a channel like this. We're reading the Bible, trying to increase literacy. My impact at this point is not much, and I don't expect that it ever will be much. It would be wonderful if the Lord would bless it and would cause it to grow. Right now I'm at 78 subscribers. No idea how many people actually, well, I do. Every day I can see that the videos, and most of the videos get 3 to 5 views. So out of my 78, very few are watching it with any regularity. But that's why we do it. People can't hear if we're not here. So pray that the Lord blesses this, that more people would tune in. Again, I would like to expand content. I would like to talk about more book reviews I read, or do book reviews of books I read. I'd like to start having commentaries dealing with Bible difficulties, apologetics, which is the study of the defense of the faith. Why is it reasonable to believe the Christian faith is the true view of reality, and stuff like that. So much good stuff we could do, and it's just for me a matter of deciding. Well, first of all, dedicating the time to create videos like that. Especially from a layman's perspective, like I am. I'm a high school graduate. So how as a layman, and even if you're not a high school graduate, maybe you've got a bachelor's, but it's not in anything biblical related. You're an engineer, or you're what have you, anything. How do we determine what is true and with that? And does it matter if it's true, or is this just my flavor that works for me? Is that really all that this is about? And each religion is a person's individual flavor, and they each can pick what they want. So part of it's just organizing myself and being disciplined enough to start to put together videos like that. And another thing I do wonder about, and appreciate your prayer, and feel free to give thoughts and comments in the comments section, is do I do that on this channel? This channel is called Reading the Bible in 3 Years. And if I don't do commentaries like that, I think it allows for a broader audience, because none of my answers will offend anybody, or I won't bring up a piece of theology and express a view they don't like. Not everybody agrees to disagree well, and sometimes if you express a view people don't like, they just instantly cut you out, and that's that. And that's one of the things I would like to talk about is what is been called theological triage. What areas can we disagree about, and what can't we disagree about? If I disagree with X, is it something that puts me outside the Christian faith? Or is it something that just maybe tells you if I'm a Presbyterian or a Baptist or a Methodist or whatever, a charismatic, a cessationist, all sorts of different theological views out there, but that we're still adhering to the core. We're not a Christian cult or something that's just not Christianity at all. If I put videos like that on here, there could be a risk to losing people if they get offended by answers on the one hand. On the other hand, it could actually maybe make this page grow more, this video page grow more, because people aren't just necessarily looking for a reading of the Bible, but people are looking for answers and thoughts on things. So please feel free to put that in the comments. A lot of unexpected commentary. I didn't plan on doing this here, but I read 1 Kings 3 related to a Seinfeld answer or episode, and there I go, distracting myself into all sorts of comments, which aren't necessarily bad things to put on here, and I would appreciate your thoughts and input. So hope you have a great weekend. Hope to see you back here tomorrow.